He sat alone, nursing his cold coffee, convinced the blind date had failed him. Again, the door opened and two identical little boys ran straight toward him. Hearts pounding, he watched as they stopped right in front of him and asked with innocent certainty, "Are you our new daddy?" Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching. The restaurant smelled of warm bread and coffee, but Ethan Miller could barely taste the air. He sat alone at a corner table, stirring his drink long after it had gone cold. He kept glancing at the door, waiting for someone who clearly wasn't coming. The blind date was supposed to start 45 minutes ago. His friend Ben had promised, "She's perfect for you, man. Sweet, funny, loves kids." But the only thing Ethan felt now was that familiar sting of disappointment. He tried to laugh it off, but deep down, it hurt. At 39, Ethan had become used to silence, the kind that echoes in your heart when you go home to an empty apartment. 3 years had passed since the accident that took his fiancée, Lila. 3 years of convincing himself he was fine. He worked long hours as a pediatric nurse, smiled for his young patients, and told everyone he wasn't ready to date. But tonight he had tried, and once again, life had reminded him how alone he really was. He looked around the restaurant. Couples laughing, friends sharing dessert, the faint sound of piano music in the background. For a moment he thought about leaving. Just as he grabbed his coat, the door burst open with a loud creak. 2 little boys, no older than 6, ran inside, identical twins, with messy brown hair and matching red sneakers. Their laughter filled the room like sunlight. Before anyone could stop them, they ran straight toward Ethan's table. One of them stared up at him with wide, curious eyes and said, "Are you our new daddy?" The entire restaurant went silent. Ethan froze, halfway between standing and sitting. "I'm sorry. What?" he asked gently, unsure if he'd heard right. The boys exchanged a quick glance. Then the second one held up a small, wrinkled photo. Ethan blinked in disbelief. It was a photo of him, clearly printed from some social media post. "Mom said this is him," the boy explained, his voice innocent and sure. Ethan's pulse quickened. Around them, waiters stopped mid-step. Diners watched with quiet fascination. He crouched down to the boys' level, trying not to startle them. "Hey, little guys, I think there's a mix-up. Where's your mom?" "Right there." One of them pointed. And that's when Ethan saw her. A woman stood at the entrance, breathless and flushed from chasing them. She had dark hair pulled into a loose bun, a teacher's kind eyes, and a mixture of shock and embarrassment on her face. She hurried over, apologizing before she even reached the table. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," she said, catching her breath. Liam, what did I tell you about running ahead?" She knelt beside them, her voice firm but loving. "You can't just run up to strangers and—" She stopped mid-sentence when she noticed Ethan's face. Her eyes widened. "Wait, are you Ethan Miller?" He nodded slowly, still trying to make sense of what was happening. "Yes, but I think there's some confusion here." She covered her mouth, mortified. "Oh no, this is— Wow, I'm so sorry. I think my boys might have misunderstood something." The twins exchanged guilty glances. Then one mumbled, "You said you were meeting Ethan today. And we thought—" "You thought I was meeting your new daddy," the woman finished softly, sighing. "Boys, that's not how this works." The restaurant chuckled quietly, but Ethan's heart softened. He looked at the twins, Leo and Liam she had called them, and smiled. "Well, I have to admit, that's the most surprising thing anyone's ever said to me on a Friday night," the woman blushed. I'm Maya Thompson. I'm so sorry for the confusion. We were supposed to meet another Ethan, my client for a real estate deal, but these two—" She glanced at the boys. "Jumped to their own conclusion." Ethan laughed gently. "No harm done. Honestly, this is the most excitement I've had in months." The twins looked from their mom to Ethan, uncertain but hopeful. "Can we stay?" one asked quietly. "We like it here." Maya hesitated. "I don't think—" "Please," Ethan interrupted softly, smiling.
"They're already here."
"Let me buy you all dinner. It's the least I can do after being mistaken for someone's future husband." For a moment Maya hesitated, but something about Ethan's tone, warm, kind, genuinely sincere, made her nod. "All right," she said, "but only if we pay for dessert." And just like that, what began as a lonely night turned into something different. The twins climbed into the booth, chattering excitedly about school and superheroes. Maya relaxed a little, her laughter lighting up the room. Ethan found himself smiling in ways he hadn't in years. As the evening unfolded, he realized that sometimes life's most beautiful beginnings don't start with a perfect plan. They start with a mistake, and two little boys who believe in second chances. When dinner ended, Maya gathered the twins, thanking Ethan again. But before leaving, little Leo looked up and whispered, "We'll see you again, right?" Ethan knelt down, meeting his gaze. "I hope so, buddy." As they walked out into the cool night air, Ethan stood by the window, watching the twins hold their mother's hands, their laughter echoing down the street. He felt something inside him shift, a spark, fragile but alive. Maybe he hadn't been stood up after all. Maybe he was just waiting for the right reason to stay. The next few days, Ethan couldn't get that evening out of his head. The laughter, the warmth, those two little boys who spoke to him like they had known him forever. Even Maya's embarrassed smile lingered in his thoughts, like the aftertaste of a memory that refused to fade. He had gone to that restaurant expecting another quiet disappointment. Instead, he had walked out feeling something he hadn't in years: connection. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something quieter, gentler. It was the sound of Leo's giggle when Ethan folded his napkin into a paper airplane. The way Liam had tugged on his sleeve, asking if all nurses were superheroes. And the way Maya had looked at her boys, full of exhaustion and fierce love all at once. That look reminded Ethan of why he'd chosen his profession, to care for others when life had broken them. 2 days later, a soft knock echoed at the hospital's pediatric wing. Ethan looked up from his paperwork to see a familiar face. Maya, standing nervously by the door, holding a paper bag. "I thought I'd bring lunch as a thank you for the other night," she said, smiling shyly. Ethan blinked in surprise, but quickly returned her smile. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she replied, stepping closer. "But I wanted to." They sat in the small break room, sharing sandwiches and quiet laughter between phone calls and beeping machines. The conversation flowed easily about their work, her struggles as a single mom, his long shifts, the boys' endless curiosity. When she laughed, Ethan realized how much he missed the sound of someone laughing just for him. When Maya stood to leave, she hesitated. "The boys haven't stopped talking about you," she said softly. "They think you're some kind of real-life superhero," Ethan smiled. "Tell them they've got it backward. They're the heroes. They've been through more than most adults ever will," she nodded, her eyes glistening. "Their dad passed away when they were 4. It's been hard. They're strong, but sometimes when they see other kids with both parents, I can tell they feel the difference." Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. "I know what that's like," he said quietly. "Losing someone who feels like your world." Their eyes met, and for a second, the room felt still. Two people who understood grief without having to explain it. From that day on, things changed. Every week or two, Maya and the twins would stop by the hospital with cookies, drawings, or just quick hugs. Ethan became Mr. E, the cool friend who could fix scraped knees and teach them magic tricks with stethoscopes. It started small, an innocent friendship, but something deeper was growing beneath it all. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan was invited to the park with them. The twins ran wild between the swings, while Maya and Ethan sat on the bench sipping coffee. "You're good with them," she said, watching him help Liam climb the monkey bars. "Better than most people I know," Ethan chuckled. "Kids are honest. They don't pretend to be okay when they're not. Maybe that's why I like them so much." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "You seem like someone who's lost a lot of people, but never lost his kindness." He turned to her, surprised by the accuracy of her words. "Maybe kindness is how I survived." The wind carried the laughter of the twins across the park. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he belonged somewhere. Weeks turned into months. And what started as chance meetings became routine, Dinners together, movie nights with popcorn, Sunday mornings at the farmer's market. The twins adored him. They'd race to greet him every time he showed up shouting, "Daddy E!" before Maya could even correct them, but not everyone understood. One evening, as Ethan was helping the boys with their homework, Maya's mother called. Ethan could hear her voice over the phone, cold, skeptical, worried. "Maya, you barely know this man. Think about your boys. You can't just let someone walk in and fill that space." Maya's hand trembled as she hung up. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mom worries. She's afraid I'll get hurt again." Ethan nodded, trying to hide the ache in his chest. "She's just protecting you. I'd probably feel the same if I were her." But that night, as he drove home, Ethan couldn't stop replaying her words. Barely know this man. Maybe she was right. What if he was getting too attached? What if he was only setting himself and them up for another heartbreak? He decided to step back just for a while. Fewer visits, shorter calls, polite distance. It felt like the right thing to do, but it hurt more than he expected. Maya noticed. So did the twins. One evening, when Ethan finally stopped by after nearly 2 weeks, Leo ran to him with tears in his eyes. "Did we do something wrong? Did we make you mad?" Ethan dropped to his knees, hugging him tightly. "No, buddy. You didn't do anything wrong. I just needed to think." "Think about what?" Liam asked softly. Ethan smiled sadly. "About how lucky I am to know you." Behind them, Maya stood in the doorway, watching. Her heart twisted. She had spent so long protecting herself and her children from pain that she hadn't realized. Sometimes, in guarding your heart, you also lock out the people who could heal it. Later that night, after the boys went to bed, she sat across from Ethan at the kitchen table. The air was heavy with unspoken words. "You've become a part of their world," she said quietly. "And mine too." "I was scared of that." "Scared of me?" Ethan asked gently. She shook her head. "Scared of losing you." Ethan reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "You won't. I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the rain began to fall, slow, rhythmic, peaceful. Inside, two people who had been strangers just weeks ago finally let their walls down. Sometimes, the best love stories don't begin with a promise. They begin with an apology, a misunderstanding, and the courage to stay a little longer when you could have walked away. The next morning, the world felt different, softer, lighter somehow. Ethan woke up to the sound of rain tapping on his window, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Maya's words from last night echoed in his mind. "Scared of losing you." There was something about that honesty, raw and trembling, that made him realize how much she meant to him. Later that day, he drove to Maya's house with a basket of breakfast pastries and 2 cups of coffee. When she opened the door, still in her robe and messy hair, she blinked in surprise. "You're early," she said, smiling shyly. Ethan shrugged. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd bring backup for your morning chaos." Inside, the twins were already chasing each other with toy swords, laughter echoing through the small living room. When they saw Ethan, they screamed in delight, running toward him like he'd been gone for years. "Mr. E, you came back!" He crouched down and hugged them both. "Told you I'm not going anywhere, didn't I?" Maya watched the scene with her arms crossed, trying to hide the emotion in her eyes. There was something about Ethan's presence, steady, patient, full of quiet warmth, that made her home feel more alive. The morning passed in small, perfect moments. Pancakes on the floor because the twins insisted on a picnic breakfast. Maya laughing so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. Ethan showing the boys how to make foam mustaches. For a little while, time stood still, but outside that cozy bubble, life was waiting, and not everyone approved. That afternoon, Maya's boss at the hospital called. "Maya, I need to talk to you about your schedule and about Ethan Miller," she said, her tone cautious. "People are starting to notice how often he visits you here." Maya froze. "He's just a friend," she replied quickly, though even to her own ears it sounded uncertain. "I'm not judging," her boss said gently. "Just be careful. You've worked hard to build your life back up. I'd hate for gossip to tear that down." Maya thanked her and hung up, but the unease lingered. She'd lost control of her life once before, when her husband died in a car accident while she was at work, and guilt had eaten her alive. She had promised herself she'd never depend on anyone again, but now Ethan was in her world, not as a savior, but as someone she wanted to depend on. That terrified her. That evening, Ethan stopped by again, this time with a surprise. He handed the boys a small box. Inside were 2 little watches, nothing expensive, but engraved on the back were the words, "Be brave, always." Their eyes widened. "Are these for us?" "Yeah," Ethan said, smiling. "So that whenever you're scared or sad, you remember you've got a friend who believes in you." Maya stood by the kitchen counter, her heart tightening. He didn't just care about them, he saw them. The boys ran off to show their new treasures, and she stepped closer. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I wanted to," he replied simply. "They deserve reminders that they're stronger than they think." She hesitated, then asked softly, "And what about you? Who reminds you?" He smiled, but his eyes darkened. "No one, really. I lost that when I lost her." Silence filled the room. Maya knew he was talking about his late fiancée, the one whose accident had left him shattered for years. "You've been through so much," she said. "So have you," he replied. "But look at you, still standing." For a moment neither of them spoke. The world outside was quiet except for the rain. It felt like they were standing at the edge of something, not just friendship, but something deeper, fragile and real. Days passed and their bond grew stronger. Ethan began spending evenings with the family, helping the boys with homework, cooking dinner, fixing leaky faucets. He became part of their rhythm, a missing piece that had finally fallen into place. But the more they grew closer, the more Maya's fears returned. One night, as Ethan was reading a bedtime story to the twins, Maya's mother showed up unannounced. She looked around, her expression cold. "So this is the man." Ethan stood, polite but tense. "Mrs. Reynolds, it's nice to meet you." Her eyes narrowed. "Nice to meet you? You've been spending every evening here, and I didn't even know your name until today." "That's not nice, that's reckless." "Mom, please," Maya interrupted, her voice firm. "He's been nothing but kind to us." Her mother's voice trembled with emotion. "Kindness doesn't protect hearts, Maya. You think I didn't watch you fall apart once before? I won't let that happen again. Not to you, not to those boys." The words cut deep. Ethan looked down, unsure what to say. Maya's mother turned to him. "You seem like a good man, but good men can still leave. Don't make promises you can't keep." Ethan nodded slowly. "You're right, ma'am. I can't promise forever, but I can promise honesty. I care about them, deeply. And I don't plan on walking away." The older woman didn't respond. She simply sighed and left. That night, after putting the twins to bed, Maya found Ethan sitting quietly on the porch, rain dripping from the roof above. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "She didn't mean to." "She's just scared," Ethan interrupted. "And honestly, I don't blame her." Maya sat beside him. "You know, I used to think love was supposed to be perfect, safe, predictable. But maybe it's just supposed to feel like home." He turned to her, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Then maybe I've been looking for home all along." They sat there in silence, side by side, watching the rain fall. 2 broken souls slowly learning how to heal. Not by forgetting the past, but by finding comfort in each other's presence. And somewhere inside that quiet night, something changed forever. Maya didn't know what the future held. Neither did Ethan. But for the first time in a very long time, they both believed it might be beautiful. Months passed, and the quiet rhythm of their new life began to feel natural. Almost like it was always meant to be this way. Ethan became more than just a visitor. He was family now. The twins' laughter echoed through the house every evening, and Maya no longer woke up to silence. There was warmth again, a reason to smile. A heartbeat that connected them all. One chilly autumn morning, Ethan arrived with his hands full. Hot cocoa for the twins, a bag of groceries, and a shy grin for Maya. The boys ran to him, their voices full of excitement. "Guess what, Mr. E? Our school's having a family day next week. You're coming, right?" Ethan froze for a moment. "Family day." He glanced at Maya, unsure of what to say. Maya smiled gently. If he wants to come, of course he can. The twins cheered and ran off again, leaving the two adults standing in the kitchen. Ethan set down the cocoa and said softly, "You sure you're okay with that?" She looked him in the eyes. "You already are part of this family, Ethan. Whether you realize it or not." The words hit him harder than she could have imagined. He wanted to believe it, but a shadow of doubt still lingered, a whisper from his past, reminding him how easily happiness could disappear. As the days passed, Ethan prepared for Family Day, like it was the most important event of his life. He helped the twins build a rocket for the science fair and even taught them how to make matching name badges that said, "Team Brave." When the big day arrived, the schoolyard was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of cotton candy. The twins proudly dragged Ethan around, introducing him to their teachers as "our dad." Maya's heart swelled watching them, the way Ethan knelt to tie their shoelaces, the way he clapped the loudest during their performance, the way he carried them both at once when they got tired. But just as the day seemed perfect, something unexpected happened. As Ethan was packing up the boys' science project, a familiar voice called from behind, "Ethan Miller?" He turned and froze. Standing there was a woman with kind eyes and a nurse's badge, Rachel, his late fiancée's sister. Rachel. He breathed, his heart racing. Maya noticed his sudden stillness and walked over. "Everything okay?" Rachel's eyes softened as she glanced between them. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just saw you from across the field. It's been years." She looked down, her voice trembling. "You look happy." Ethan swallowed hard. "I am," he said honestly. "Or at least, I'm learning how to be." Rachel smiled faintly. "She'd be glad for that, you know. She'd want you to move on." Tears welled in his eyes, but he nodded. "Thank you." As Rachel walked away, Maya gently touched his arm. "Someone important." He exhaled slowly. "Her sister. The woman I was supposed to marry." Maya didn't say anything. She just stood beside him, silent and steady. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel the weight of guilt. He felt peace. That evening, as they drove home, the twins fell asleep in the back seat, their little heads resting against each other. Maya glanced at Ethan and whispered, "You don't have to fight your past anymore. You deserve to be loved again." He turned to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "And you deserve someone who never leaves." The car was quiet for a long time after that, but it was the kind of silence that said everything words couldn't. Weeks later, on a calm Sunday afternoon, Maya found a note on her porch. It was from Ethan. "Meet me where it all began." Her heart raced as she drove to the little restaurant where they first met. The same one where her twins had once mistaken him for their new dad. Inside, the lights were dim, soft music playing in the background. On the table sat a photo frame, a picture of Ethan, Maya, and the twins from Family Day, smiling under the autumn sky. Ethan stepped out from behind the counter, holding a small velvet box. Maya froze. "Ethan." He took her hands gently, his eyes glistening. "The night we met, I thought I was being stood up again. But maybe fate just wanted me to wait for you, for them, for this." Tears welled up in her eyes as he continued, voice trembling. "I don't want to replace what you've lost, Maya. I just want to build something new with you, something real." He knelt down, opening the box to reveal a simple silver ring. "So, Maya Reynolds, will you let me be part of your forever?" Maya covered her mouth, tears streaming freely. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. The twins, who had been hiding near the corner with tiny grins, ran out shouting, "Mum said yes! Mum said yes!" Ethan laughed, scooping them up in his arms as Maya joined them, wrapping her arms around all three. For the first time in years, everything felt whole. Months later, they stood together in a small backyard ceremony, just close friends, family, and laughter. As Ethan placed the ring on Maya's finger, he whispered, "You didn't just save me, Maya. You gave me back my life." She smiled through tears. "And you gave me back my heart." The twins threw flower petals into the air, shouting, "Team Brave forever." As the sun dipped behind the horizon, Ethan looked at his new family, the woman who taught him to love again, and the boys who taught him what it meant to believe again. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it walks in quietly, disguised as a mistake, wrapped in laughter and sealed with two little voices asking, "Are you our new daddy?" And just like that, a lost man, a broken mother, and two little hearts became one family the world couldn't tear apart.